Book Second of the Joyful Wisdom, Part 2. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Joyful Wisdom by Friedrich Nietzsche, translated by Thomas Common. Book Second, Part 2. 87. The Conceit of the Artists. I think artists often do not know what they can do best, because they are too conceited, and have set their minds on something loftier than those little plants appear to be, which can grow up to perfection on their soil, fresh, rare, and beautiful. The final value of their own garden and vineyard is superciliously underestimated by them, and their love and their insight are not of the same quality. Here is a musician who more than anything else has a genius for discovering the tones peculiar to suffering, oppressed, tortured souls, and can endow even dumb animals with speech. No one equals him in the colours of the late autumn, in the indescribable touching happiness of a last, a final, and all too short enjoyment. He knows a chord for those secret and weird midnights of the soul, when cause and effect seem out of joint, and when every instant something may originate "out of nothing." He draws his resources best of all out of the lower depths of human happiness, and, so to speak, out of its drained goblet, where the bitterest and most nauseous drops have ultimately, for good or for ill, commingled with the sweetest. He knows the weary shuffling along of the soul which can no longer leap or fly, yea, not even walk. He has the shy glance of concealed pain, of understanding without comfort, of leave-taking without avowal. Yea, as the Orpheus of all secret misery, he is greater than anyone. And, in fact, much has been added to art by him which was hitherto inexpressible, and not even thought worthy of art, and which was only to be scared away by words and not grasped. Many small and quite microscopic features of the soul. Yes, he is the master of miniature. But he does not wish to be so. His character is more in love with large walls and daring frescoes. He fails to see that his spirit has a different taste and inclination, and prefers to sit quietly in the corners of ruined houses. Concealed in this way, concealed even from himself, he there paints his proper masterpieces, all of which are very short, often only 1 bar in length. There only does he become quite good, great, and perfect, perhaps there only. But he does not know it. He is too conceited to know it. 88. Earnestness for the truth. Earnestness for the truth. What different things men understand by these words! Just the same opinions and modes of demonstration and testing which a thinker regards as a frivolity in himself, to which he has succumbed with shame at one time or another, just the same opinions may give to an artist who comes in contact with them and accepts them temporarily, the consciousness that the profoundest earnestness for the truth has now taken hold of him, and that it is worthy of admiration that, although an artist, he at the same time exhibits the most ardent desire for the antithesis of the apparent. It is thus possible that a person may, just by his pathos of earnestness, betray how superficially and sparingly his intellect has hitherto operated in the domain of knowledge. And is not everything that we consider important our betrayer? It shows where our motives lie, and where our motives are altogether lacking. 89. Now and formerly. Of what consequence is all our art in artistic products, if that higher art, the art of the festival, be lost by us? Formerly all artistic products were exhibited on the great festival path of humanity, as tokens of remembrance, and monuments of high and happy moments. One now seeks to allure the exhausted and sickly from the great suffering path of humanity for a wanton moment by means of works of art. One furnishes them with a little ecstasy and insanity. 90. Lights and shades. Books and writings are different with different thinkers. One writer has collected together in his book all the rays of light which he could quickly plunder and carry home from an illuminating experience, while another gives only the shadows and the grey and black replicas of that which on the previous day had towered up in his soul. 91. Precaution. Alfieri, as is well known, told a great many falsehoods when he narrated the history of his life to his astonished contemporaries. He told falsehoods owing to the despotism towards himself which he exhibited, for example, in the way in which he created his own language and tyrannized himself into a poet. He finally found a rigid form of sublimity into which he forced his life and his memory. He must have suffered much in the process. I would also give no credit to a history of Plato's life written by himself, as little as to Rousseau's, or as to the Vita Nova of Dante. 92. Prose and Poetry. Let it be observed that the great masters of prose have almost always been poets as well, whether openly or only in secret and from the "closet." And in truth one only writes good prose in view of poetry, for prose is an uninterrupted, polite warfare with poetry. All its charm consists in the fact that poetry is constantly avoided and contradicted. Every abstraction wants to have a jibe at poetry, and wishes to be uttered with a mocking voice. All dryness and coolness is meant to bring the amiable goddess into an amiable despair. There are often approximations and reconciliations for the moment, and then a sudden recoil and a burst of laughter. The curtain is often drawn up and dazzling light let in just while the goddess is enjoying her twilights and dull colours. The word is taken out of her mouth and chanted to a melody, while she holds her fine hands before her delicate little ears. And so there are 1,000 enjoyments of the warfare, the defeats included, of which the unpoetic, the so-called prose men, know nothing at all, and consequently write and speak only bad prose. Warfare is the father of all good things. It is also the father of good prose. There have been 4 very singular and truly poetic men in this century who have arrived at mastership in prose, for which otherwise this century is not suited, owing to the lack of poetry as we have indicated. Not to take Goethe into account, for he is reasonably claimed by the century that produced him. I look only on Giacomo Leopardi, Prosper Mérimée, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Walter Savage Landor, the author of Imaginary Conversations, as worthy to be called masters of prose. 93. But why, then, do you write? A. I do not belong to those who think with the wet pen in hand, and still less to those who yield themselves entirely to their passion before the open ink bottle, sitting on their chair and staring at the paper. I am always vexed and abashed by writing. Writing is a necessity for me. Even to speak of it in simile is disagreeable. B. But why then do you write? A. Well, my dear sir, I tell you in confidence, I have hitherto found no other means of